Chapter 13. Tea. "Neaty," the elderly woman at the table said, standing. "Ivanka, it's been too long," Governor Singh replied, pulling her friend into a hug. As the two separated and Governor Singh took a seat, she said, "It's good to see you. I'm glad you could make time to catch up." They were at a small cafe in the Commerce District. Their table looked out into the open expanse of the sprawling retail jungle. The other woman, somewhere around the same age as the governor of Kelso Station, was in a nondescript light brown jumpsuit, the same as many station workers wore. She had added epaulettes to denote her role on the station. She smiled. "A chance to have tea with an old friend. I wouldn't miss it. I will admit to being surprised at your sudden appearance. I'd have thought you would have called ahead." A waiter came over with 2 cups, porcelain by the look of them. Each was filled with steaming water. The young woman produced a small box of assorted teas, placing it at the end of the table. Governor Singh dipped her head. "I apologize for the short notice. My nephew and his business partner had a meeting here that I wasn't aware of." She selected a tea bag, dunking it several times until it settled. "We're supposed to be on our way home from New Terra," she shrugged, "but apparently we will be here a day or so." Governor Ivanka Rostova smiled. "Well, I'm glad I get to see you." She held her own delicate cup up in salute. "How are things on New Terra? I'm guessing you got dragged out there for His Majesty Big Dick's summit." She chuckled at her joke. Singh came close to spitting hot tea all over the table. "I'd be lying if I said I didn't contemplate throwing my lunch plate at him a few times." She shook her head. "How we ended up here with that closed-minded buffoon running all of human-occupied space is beyond me." "The good guys don't always win," the governor of Columbiana said into her cup. Singh smoothed her hair back with her free hand. "Indeed. Now all we can do is ride it out." Governor Rostova fiddled with one of her epaulettes. "And hope someone takes care of things eventually." She met her friend's gaze. Both women nodded. Governor Singh finally said, "Listen, Ivanka, I might need your help here soon." Her friend leaned forward with a wolfish grin. "Do tell." Questions and answers. "I swear I don't know," a haggard man screamed. He had lost count of the number of times he had answered that question with the same answer. The man seated opposite him tilted his head, as if examining a peculiar animal. "Joe, you're the most highly regarded fence on this station, specializing in exotic and expensive data," Agent 2 repeated. The man sagged in the chair. "How many times do I have to tell you, man? I haven't bought or sold any Imperial data in weeks." Agent 2 had a compact blaster in one hand, resting it on the table between them. The fence had a black eye and bloody nose from when he had tried to deny Agent 2 entry to his workshop. Agent 2 nodded. "I know they're on the station, which means they'd find their way to you." The other man sobbed. "But they haven't," he pleaded. He looked around frantically. "I swear it." Agent 2 raised his blaster. Wait! Agent 2 paused, eyebrows arched. "A friend of mine set up a meeting for me later today. I don't know who the sellers are. Just that he, my friend, said it'd be worth my time. Maybe that's them?" "Then I guess I'm early," Agent 2 said, firing a single bolt of energy into the other man's chest. The force of the blast sent the body tipping backwards in the chair. Joe the fence was dead before his body hit the ground. Agent 2 was settling in to wait for his prey when his G-phone buzzed. His involuntary droid operative had just completed its job much sooner than he had expected. He swore at the timing, knowing that if he missed his opportunity to get aboard the Osprey, he'd never get another shot. Standing, he realized he'd have to work on apprehending his old friend and her lover, or whatever role the guy she traveled with served later. He stood and left Joe the Fence's workshop. Rudy had arranged a meeting for Governor Singh and the Governor of Columbiana, so while Jax and Naomi headed for their appointment with Leonard's friend Joe, the small Indian woman went about getting ready for her meeting. "Jeffrey, where is my dark blue sari?" she shouted as Jax and Naomi stepped off the Osprey's boarding ramp. "You know, she's going to be pissed if her meeting ends and we're not ready to go," Naomi said as they walked to the hatch of their landing dome. Jax shrugged. "Yeah, guessing 2 days' delay is the most we can hope for. I'm kind of surprised she hasn't gotten violent yet." They rounded the corner on level 24 and spotted 3 men in bespoke black suits standing outside the door that Jax was pretty sure was their destination. Jax put a hand out, stopping Naomi. Are those—" She moved his hand down, then looked past him. "Crimson Orchid goons?" "Yeah, looks like," she finished. The largest of the trio had a distinct tattoo of an orchid peeking out over the collar of his shirt. How the hell did they get here? Jax wondered, stepping back further around the corner. "Leonard," Naomi hissed. "I knew they put a bulletin out on you, but assumed he wouldn't get himself involved." She leaned to look around the corner. A 4th man exited the space they believed the fence, Joe something or other, worked out of. The man shook his head and touched his chest. The foursome conferred for a minute, then departed. "I'll kill that asshole," Naomi hissed. She looked at Jax. "This doesn't look good for selling that data." They crept toward the door to Joe the Fence's space. It took Naomi less than a second to override the locking mechanism. The Orchid goons had done an admirable job of hacking the mechanism. It wasn't damaged or in any outward way violated. Inside, still lying on the floor, tied to the overturned chair he had died in, was Joe the Fence. The burned hole in his chest had cooled. The blood coagulated into a brownish smudge. Jax looked around. "We better go." "I need to see Leonard," Naomi said. Jax shook his head. "He sold us and him." He pointed to the body, its single scorched wound in the chest. "Out! I think it's time to cut our losses." "Did he, though?" she pressed. Yeah, he sold us out. But didn't it look like the orchids were as surprised as we are?" She pointed to the wound. "Plus, that's not fresh. I doubt the orchids would hang around after killing him." Jax looked down. "Good point. So, who killed this guy?" Naomi shrugged. "I could try to find our mystery killer and ask if you would like." Her expression told him what she thought of that idea. "Jax, Naomi," Rudy said over both of their earpieces. "Yeah, what's up?" Jax replied. "A droid that works in the space dock just approached me with information. It wouldn't say what, just that it was important and related to the Empire. There's an Imperial ship here, just arrived." "Why did it approach you?" Naomi wondered. "An Imperial ship? Here?" Jax said. Rudy ignored him, answering Naomi. "At any time in our association, have you seen me exhibit the ability to read minds?" The droid didn't wait for her reply. "I have no idea. It said the Imperial ship arrived, which was odd, so I started to dig around, landing on us." "Okay, well, that's a bit weird. Are you okay doing the meet?" Jax asked. "Agreed, but seems like the smart play. I'm on my way back to the ship now," the nav droid replied. Skip jumped into the call. "We'll keep an eye on things." "You sure you'll be okay?" Naomi asked. There was a sound like a cluck. "Skip can ensure nothing happens. Plus, the combat droid will be there too."
"Damn right I will be. I don't like strangers, droid or biological," the combat droid said.
Plus, Rudy has his knives, Skip offered.
I thought we talked about those, Jack said.
No one answered. He sighed. Keep us posted. He looked at Naomi.
What now?
Welp. I don't think this is a good idea, Jack said for the second or maybe the third time. They were on deck 22, almost to the door of Abernathy Brokerage. The door was closed. Jack pressed the announcer button next to the door. Naomi looked around her and rested her hand on the control panel. Her hand pulsed several times. She frowned.
You okay?
Jack asked, looking at her hand on the control panel. Leonard rewrote the control system. Give me a second. Okay, there. The door slid open. Several black-suited men turned to look at the newcomers. They were further inside the space, gathered around a seated Leonard, the latter looking terrified as his eye settled on Jack's.
Oh, shit,
Jax whispered. The door slid shut. You were right, Naomi said. Bad idea. Several loud bangs came from the other side of the door. Jax looked down. Naomi's hand was still on the control panel. She smiled. Now I rewrote the control software. They turned and ran down the corridor. Unsure how many Crimson Orchid operators might be on the station, or who the mysterious Imperial ship belonged to, they made their way back to the space dock quickly and quietly, avoiding using the comms just in case. When they reached the Osprey, Skip wasn't responding. Neither was Baxter or Rudy. The boarding ramp was down. Jax looked at Naomi as they approached.
Not good,
she nodded. Neither of them was armed. Columbiana, being a sovereign station, set its own rules, and citizens carrying guns was frowned on. Visitors carrying guns was explicitly forbidden. Only law enforcement officers could carry weapons. Jax was pretty sure he saw sidearms on the Crimson Orchid goons, and someone definitely burned a hole through the fence. They crept up the ramp, then up the spiral staircase into the cargo and engineering deck. Rudy was lying on the deck in the middle of the space. Jax rushed to the droid. Buddy, hey! He tapped on the droid's head. Naomi crept past them to the engineering space. The normally closed hatch was half open. She pushed the hatch all the way open. Jax, she hissed. Jax came up beside her.
Holy hell, what is all this?
Inside the engineering space was normally a tidy area, thanks to Baxter. Since his charging station was in engineering, he considered the entire space his, despite knowing almost nothing about starship engineering. Baxter was in the middle of the space, frozen mid-stride, held firmly in place by some type of foam that looked like it had come from a droid Jax did not recognize. The mystery droid had frozen mid-fall, only a few feet from Baxter. It looked as if the latter was charging the former when the foam erupted from the torso of the intruder. The foam seemed to have exploded outward as a mist or fog, then flashed into a hardened state. Jax knocked on the hardened foam. Solid.
Who the hell is that?
Jax asked, pointing. Naomi shrugged. Must be the droid Rudy mentioned, she tutted. Certainly an elaborate trap. Jax groaned. Auntie! He bolted for the staircase. Naomi followed, then stopped, kneeling next to Rudy's inert form. She placed a hand on his head, her bio-circuit tattoos activating. Gah! The droid shouted as indicators on his head and cylindrical torso lit up. Naomi stood up. Come on. By the time Naomi made it up the stairs, Rudy zipping up the null-gravity center column of the staircase, Jax was in the lounge space of the common deck, standing perfectly still. Jax? His business partner said in a low voice. They're gone, he said. My aunt and Jeffrey. They're gone. Naomi walked over and put a hand on his shoulder. Jax. He shrugged her hand off and turned to face Rudy. What the hell happened? The nav droid made a low, keening sound. I don't know, Jax. I wish I did. I got here just before that other droid, P-54X2, did. He insisted on coming aboard. The moment we got into the hold, he disabled me with a localized EMP. The squat droid rolled around in a circle. He must have run into engineering to take out Baxter. And Skip? Jax asked, looking at the ceiling. Rudy bobbed up and down nervously. The droid must have fired off an EMP at the same time he immobilized Baxter. Naomi looked down at Rudy, then headed for the stairs. I'll try to get to the computer core and get Skip up and running. Jax nodded. He turned to Rudy and sighed. It's okay, bud. Something is going on, and we're still at the starting block. A noise burst from the overhead speakers, like gravel in a jar. Watch out, Jackson! Governor Singh, Jeffrey! Ah! Skip! Jack shouted, looking at the ceiling. There was a moment of silence. Jax looked at Rudy, who said nothing. Finally, Skip said, Jackson, I'm sorry. I failed. Jack smiled. It's okay, buddy. No, it's not, the ceiling retorted. Naomi came back up the stairs. I left Baxter offline for now. I couldn't even budge that foam stuff. She smiled. I had to climb over it to get to the core. Jax nodded. He just wig out. He looked back to the ceiling. What happened, Skip? Now what? That droid arrived, the one Rudy met, the ship's SI said. Nothing seemed out of order at first. Then he whammied Rudy and rushed into engineering. I warned Baxter, but it was too little too late. The droid exploded. A pause. Then I was offline. When Skip didn't continue for almost a minute, Jax said, What happened then? An EMP shouldn't have completely knocked you out. I don't know, the ship replied. You're right. Wait. Jax looked at Naomi, who shrugged. Jack said, Skip? I found something. The bulkhead-mounted entertainment screen came to life. On it, a still image of a tall man in a bespoke suit entering the cargo hold. I don't remember doing it, but I saved that snapshot in an encrypted comm buffer. A long pause. I don't know who that is. I have no memory of him coming aboard. I don't even remember saving that still. I do, Naomi said. Jax looked at her. Know him, that is. He's an interface. You know him? Jax pressed. An interface, like you? She shook her head. No. At least I don't think so. I don't recognize him. But only an interface could get aboard and completely override Skip and shut Baxter down before they could get a warning to us. She took a deep breath. Not to mention wiping Skip's memory so thoroughly. Damn it, what the hell is going on here? Jax exhaled. Why did he take my aunt and Jeffrey? I'm sorry, Captain. I don't have any other answers. He wiped everything. The sapient intelligence that managed the Osprey's systems apologized. Jax put his face in both hands. If anything happens to her, I don't know what I'll do. And Jeffrey? Naomi asked. Jax shrugged and looked up at her. Sure, I guess he's okay too. Be a bummer if he died. He quirked a smile. Captain, I might have an idea, Skip offered. Jax looked at the ceiling. Rudy's booby-trapped friend may not have been lying about why he was here. If I can infiltrate the space dock management computer and find the ship that brought the interface here, maybe I can find him on cameras and we can track him. And the Crimson Orchid? Naomi wondered, not addressing anyone in particular. Jax took a deep breath, rubbing his face. Damn, yeah, we gotta address them too. I know this time wasn't them following us or anything, but obviously they've got reach, even outside Imperial territories. She nodded. Why aren't they surrounding the ship? Those goons at Leonard's definitely recognized us. This time it was Rudy who chimed in. They probably can't. Columbiana doesn't mess around as far as security goes. Sneaking a few pistols in is one thing. Storming a docking dome would attract a lot of attention. Jax nodded. The fact they got sidearms through security is impressive and terrifying. But he's right. They can't just walk around flaunting them. He smiled. That might be our one bonus right now. They have to follow the same rules we do. He shrugged and added, more or less. Jack stood up. Okay, let's get engineering cleaned up and Baxter online. He looked at Rudy. And dispose of your friend. Rudy spread his arms. How could I know he was a Trojan horse? It took 30 minutes and a laser saw to free Baxter. The engineering space would need a significant amount of cleanup and a fresh coat of paint at some point down the road. Naomi only needed a few minutes to unlock the combat droid's processing core and bring him back to full functionality. The other droid was a lost cause. The explosion of capture foam destroyed its processing core and most of its torso.
I will rip someone apart,
Baxter said, once Naomi got him back online. Jax rested a hand on the matte black combat droid's chest. You'll get your chance, buddy. Captain, I think I've got something, Skip said. Jax and Naomi looked up. The ship's SI continued. Our bad guy, well, the non-organized crime bad guy, is some type of Imperial agent. He arrived aboard a ship that made it from New Terra to here in almost a third of the time it took us. That's impossible, Rudy said. Jax looked at the small droid, shrugging. He looked at the ceiling. Anything else? According to the space dock control computer, the ship's crew is still aboard, keeping the reactor running. I was able to access the security feeds for the space dock. I compared the image I captured of our intruder to the feeds and found him. They are one and the same. Jax headed for the staircase. Okay, any chance he had a name tag on or anything? I'm afraid not, the ship replied. On the common deck, Jax said, I think it's time we looked at our treasure. This is bad. The data storage module was sitting on the shelf in the vault, right where Jax had left it the day before. They were lucky that their Imperial visitor had not had time to ransack the ship and discover the vault. Jax placed the storage unit on the small dining table. He was on one side, Naomi on the other. Rudy and Baxter were standing nearby, watching. Naomi had her eyes closed, both hands resting on the storage unit. Both hands were pulsing blue, slowly sometimes, then faster. Anything? Jax leaned forward. She opened one eye. Concentrating. He leaned back, hands up defensively. Sorry. He turned to Rudy, shrugging. She removed one hand from the storage module, placing it on a tablet lying on the table next to her. The device's screen immediately came to life. Lines of computer code scrolled down it. Jax watched the process, his foot tapping the floor, until a look from Naomi stopped it. Finally, she opened her eyes, the biocircuitry lining her arms and face fading until they were nearly invisible, then perfectly hidden. She picked up the tablet and looked it over, tapping and swiping the screen. Oh, crap. The tablet lowered to the table. Naomi just stared at it. Jax looked at the tablet, then back up at his partner's face. What? He reached for the tablet. After a minute of browsing the files on the device, he whistled. Improved grav plating. Wormhole compression. Improved microcontrollers for synthetic limbs. Pulse cannons. He looked up. Cool. Keep going, Naomi urged, rolling her hand for him to continue. Jack scrolled to the next set of files. What is this? He opened file after file, finally looking up at his business partner. Okay, this is bad. What? Rudy demanded, rolling sideways anxiously, then coming up next to the table. Jax looked at the navigation droid, handing him the tablet. Naomi looked at Rudy, then the ceiling. Sorry. I disabled the wireless gear so no one can get into it. Rudy browsed the files on the device, while Baxter watched over his shoulder. Baxter looked up.
The Emperor certainly aims high, doesn't he?
Jax nodded. Do you understand any of it? He looked at each of his team in turn. Baxter shook his matte black head.
Something to do with harnessing or inverting gravity or something, the combat droid said, adding, I'm better at killing than science.
Thanks for that image, Jack said. Yeah, Naomi agreed. Baxter made a motion as close to shrugging as his frame allowed. Rudy offered, I can't offer much either on the tech side, but the summary tells us more than enough. Planet breaker, they call it. Okay, so what? We can't exactly take this, he gestured to the device on the table, back and say we're sorry. And assuming those devices that the commander had us plant were as powerful as they looked, this is the only copy, Naomi said. Jax groaned. You know, I had forgotten those. Damn it. She inclined her head. This is so much bigger than anything I expected to get. She held out her hand to Rudy, who gave her back the tablet. She pointed to the droids. The guy who did a number on them was an interface, like me. I don't know what him being an agent means, but I can't imagine it's a good thing. Clearly, the Empire wants it back. She tapped a finger on the data storage module. I thought the Emperor canceled the program. Killed all of your friends and stuff, Jack said. She shrugged. Version 2? I honestly don't know, Jack sighed. How did you not look at the data when you copied it? She glared, holding up a finger. 1, they encrypted it. Another finger. 2, we were kinda in a hurry. Another finger. 3, I just looked for interesting-sounding project and folder names. There was no way to know that one was a set of plans for a planet-killing superweapon. Who names a project like that? Moonbeam. Jax tilted his head. Fair. He looked around and leaned back in the chair. We've got an undisclosed number of Crimson Orchid goons on the station out to get us, and an Imperial secret agent with the same whammy powers as Naomi. They all want us, to some degree or another, dead.
Thank you for the summary,
Baxter quipped. Jax made a rude gesture. I don't think there are degrees of death, Rudy pointed out. What if we call the Crimson Orchid, give them the tablet? Skip offered from the ceiling. Surely they have the means to sell it, or make their own planet buster. Jax looked at the ceiling speaker. Oh, yeah, that's a great idea. Let's give an organized crime syndicate the plans for a planet-killing superweapon. Not to mention the rest of this stuff. He looked at the tablet. Not to mention, that doesn't get Auntie and Jeffrey back.